You can get
Then
through.
I'll get through everything else that is to come.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Parenthood. If you are new here, I am Neha Garg, your host, and this is the podcast where we dive deep into the real, unfiltered stories of parents from all walks of life. Today's episode is going to be a special one. I'm joined by a guest who embodies resilience, growth, and a deep commitment to making the world a better place, not just for her children, but for all of us. Our guest today is Arundhati, an entrepreneur, sustainability advocate, and the founder of Studio Beach. But beyond her professional accomplishments, Arundhati is also a mother to her 14-year-old daughter Ekvira and her fur baby Buddy. She's navigated the challenges of parenting through different life stages, and she's here to share her story of learning, evolving, and embracing every part of the journey. Arundhati, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Neha, for having me here.
To start things off, Arundhati, I'd love for our listeners as well as for me to get to know you a little better. If you had to describe yourself using only three words or phrases that capture the essence of who you are, what would they be and why?
Foolishly brave. I think that's the phrase. That's also my Instagram handle.
That's right.
Um, I think that's the phrase I like to use for myself. I would like to think I have a lot of courage
Yeah.
because some of my life choices seem to reflect that. Do I always think too much about it? No. And I always say this, whether it was a very foolish thing to do or a brave thing to do is something you only figure out in retrospect.
Yeah.
And hence the term foolishly brave.
That's,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think if I had to describe myself in a phrase, that would be it.
Love that. I totally love that. And if you have already taken Foolishly Brave, so we want to hear something else now. If your life was a storybook, what would be its title and what chapter are you living currently?
I think, I don't know, probably a square peg in a round hole. I
Yeah.
think that's what I would say. Because I just am always questioning the whats and the whys of life,
Yeah.
and figuring out why are we doing what we're doing, and is there another way to do it and do it differently. Um, as far as I don't think my life happens in chapters. To be honest, I think it happens in short stories.
Huh.
And I keep saying that to people, that why do we all think life is so linear, that one thing has to lead to another? Why can't it happen in short stories? So there is a story, there are characters, there are things you do, there are people you meet, and then it ends, and
Yeah.
then there is a new story.
Yeah.
Um, right now I have just ended a story of building a brand for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just about stepping into a new story, so to say.
Yeah.
So very exciting times, very scary times also, but yeah,
Mm.
I
That's
I like to say life happens in short stories.
That's such a beautiful way of looking at things. I think we all must thank you for giving us that perspective. But now talking about, your family, can you introduce us to your family? Tell us a little bit about Ekvira, her personality, any interesting quirks that you think she has. And also, we can't forget Buddy. So tell us about him.
Okay, okay. So Equina is, in a lot of ways, I like to say she's a mini me.
Uh-huh.
So, when you're growing up and you behave badly, your parents say कि जब तुम माँ बाप बनोगे तुम्हें पता चलेगा.
Right.
Every parent says that, I think, and I don't think there is a truer statement than that, right?
Yeah.
Um, because when you become a parent, you start looking at things through the perspective of a parent, and you were like, oh my God,
Yeah.
didn't think of that. But Equina, she is, she and I are very similar, and she and I are very different. But what I like about her is that that child has a mind of her own,
Mm-hmm.
completely, right? So she will not hesitate to tell me that, hey, listen, I don't think what you're saying is right,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't believe in what you're saying, or I want to do it differently. I think that's something she's had from the, so that rebellious streak. which my
Yeah.
mother used to hate in me. And I wished my daughter didn't have it, but seems to have got it in ample proportion. Uh, is right there in her. But other than that, she's an incredibly talented singer.
Mm-hmm.
She's been singing since she was about 3.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so she sings Indian classical both at a fairly professional level.
Mm.
She plays football. She's again been playing football since she was a very young child. And what else? And I think the biggest thing I've learned from Equira, and I think we learn from our kids all the time. I
Yeah.
have learned to be kind.
Yeah.
I thought I was a good person, but I can tell you for sure that my daughter made me a better person because
Yeah.
she absolutely loves animals. And while I got Buddy for her, now I have another dog who's
Oh,
about 3 years old. Yeah, yeah, I have two now. Her name is Leah, and Leah is a rescue from the area where we stay. And and I didn't even want her, to be honest. My daughter forced her down my throat. And I think every day I learn how to be a kinder, better person from her.
yeah.
So I think, like every mom, it's a love-hate relationship with your children, right?
Yeah.
You love them at times and you hate them at other times.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're loving them most of the time, I think it's all good.
Yeah. So tell us about Buddy and Leah also. I didn't know about Leah. So is that a recent addition?
She's gonna finish 3 years
Wow.
in our house in during Diwali. So Buddy walked into our house at he's turning 7 now, and he came to us when he was 40 days old.
Wow.
And I know that both and actually got a dog for Equira. She wanted one really badly, and we kept trying, and suddenly this. I mean, I totally remember the day this boy came to our house in one little pink basket. And we opened the basket and he came out. He's a golden retriever, right? So they're furry and cute as hell. Um, and um, and that's it. I think both of us gave away a part of our
Heart.
hearts to him forever.
Yeah.
And in fact, when Equira was smaller, uh, I used to tell her that I love Buddy more, and she would cry.
Oh,
Like there was total serious sibling rivalry. Like, you can't love him more. Why do you love him more? Why does he not get shoutings? Why do I get shoutings? Now she's grown over it. Now when I tell her I love him more, she just rolls her eyes, like like she does at everything. But again, I think he's taught us what it is to love unconditionally, right? Um, so I cannot. I think I was a different person before a dog and after a dog, to be honest. And Leah, she just walked into our lives. I was at work one day. I get a call from my daughter saying, "Listen, there is this little puppy outside the house. She's very sick. She's dying. Dogs are stamping on her. This, that. Can I just bring her home and can we just take her to the vet in the evening?" So when at work, first of all, I'm not listening half the time. So I said, "Yeah, yeah, whatever. Let me come home and we'll see." And then when I came home, there was this little, I mean, she was like smaller than my hand, I think. She was that small. And we took her to the vet, and the vet like obviously said that, I'm glad you picked her up because she wouldn't have made it. Give her a couple of medicines, this, that, and then. And for the first almost 2, 3 weeks, she used to live in a shoebox.
yeah.
I used to take her to work and bring her home in this box. And then when she got better, 2, 3 months later, I told Equira, I said, "Listen, we live in a 2-bedroom house in Bombay. We cannot for the life of us have 2 dogs, right? So this one has to go for adoption." Okay, we found one family. We gave her, they came, took her. And the day we took her, they came for adoption, Equira completely flipped. She said, "Bad mother, you can't give her away." I said, "But that was always the deal. We were not supposed to have her. No, this, that, this, that." She cried and she walked off, stormed off to her father's house, crying. And obviously, I so gave her away. And then later, I remember in the evening, I was chatting with a friend to say, should I have given her? Should I have not have given her? He said, "Listen, don't think about it. Now that you've given her, she's gone to a good home. She's okay." And then that night at like some 3 in the morning, we get a call from that family
Yeah.
saying, "Come and take your dog right now." So what
Oh,
happened? She said, "No, the dog has woken up. The dog is jumping on our baby. they had a little 1-year-old boy.
Yeah.
She's carrying my son is crying. So I was like, what just happened? So then I sat in the car and we drove, and they were standing on the road with her,
Wow.
literally. And when we went there, they literally like threw her on us.
Yeah.
And she came and sat in the car and she looks at me and not a peep from her. She just sat. So, and then she came home. And then I was like, I don't think she was ever meant to go.
Yeah.
After that, and that's it, that's it. That was our first and last adoption attempt for her.
Yeah.
And then now
She's
she's
home.
just, huh?
She's
She's
back
home.
home.
She's home. When about a year ago, and she has a lot of anxiety issues because she's kind of has that childhood trauma from the road and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So bringing her up was very different from bringing Buddy up, right?
Yeah.
Buddy is a dog who thinks every human being is an angel. Like he has
Yeah.
zero trust issues. He loves everyone, and she doesn't like anyone, doesn't trust anyone,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. But yeah, so now I have to.
Lovely, lovely. And you also mentioned, Arundhati, about your separation from Ekvira's father when she was 7 year old. So, how's co-parenting been for you? How has it evolved over time? How was it in the beginning?
Um, I think initially it was a little hard.
Yeah,
And it was a little hard not because co-parenting is hard. I think initially it was a little hard because we both had a little bit of baggage from our marriage,
yeah,
right? So every time she would be with him, I would get all antsy and nervous, and when she would be with me, he would get all stressed, and nobody wanted to listen to the other person, nobody wanted to take advice from the other person, and things like that. Uh, but I think one thing was constant, that both of us had her best interest in mind
yeah,
always.
yeah,
So that helped us navigate, and I think slowly as time went by, it's been 7 years now. We also kind of figured that one is, time takes care of most things.
yeah,
So all those extreme strong feelings of distrust, hate, I don't know, anger, whatever it is, kind of dissipates over time. And I think now it's become easier. Also, what happened is, as Equira started growing, and she was about 10, 11, we figured she's totally playing us. Like she would tell the mother what the mother wants to hear. She would tell the father what
oh,
the father wants to hear. If she wants something and the father says no, she'll figure out how to put it to the mother.
yeah,
Kids are very smart that way, right?
yeah,
So at some point, he and I had a chat, and we said, you know what, we need to let her know that as far as us as parents are concerned, we are on the same side.
right,
You know,
yeah,
we may agree to disagree over something, but for her, we are a unit, and it
yeah,
has to be that way.
yeah,
Uh, so we formed one WhatsApp group, the three of us. That also was like a struggle to start with, but eventually it helped, because now,
yeah,
because otherwise I would only know the information she would relay to
yeah,
me. He would only know the information she would relay to him.
yeah.
So we figured that no, this is not on. Um, so it's gotten easier over time,
Yeah,
much
yeah,
easier.
sounds so. Yeah, sounds so. I think it's such a mature thing to say when you say that, like you might be two different people at two different points in your life and might not see, say, eye to eye on a lot of personal things. But when it comes to parenting, you are one unit. I think that's such an important thing for a child also to know and to hear. But Arundhati, what about your support system? They say it takes a village to raise a child. So, what is your village been like, and how have you been supported on this journey?
I think I have exceptional friends, to be honest.
Yeah,
I have been blessed with exceptional friends. I can tell you, when I wanted to get divorced, it wasn't easy.
yeah,
My father was not very, pro the idea. my family was not very pro the idea. So they tried everything to ensure that it doesn't happen. But I told them that, whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I think a tip to also your listeners is that I think you should listen to everyone, but eventually do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And for a while that it really got, I think, very stressful for me and Ashish, because both our families were you know for it, not for it. All kinds of stuff was going on. But eventually, I had a very, very supportive set of friends,
Mm.
neighbors, who really like chipped in emotionally, also in every other way. Like, if we would go for holidays, Equira and I would be the only, Equira would be the only child whose father is not there. So let's say there are
Right.
four families, everybody, mother, father, and over there. So the boys would always make sure that they compensated. She would never be made to feel that, what, you are being marginalized because your father is
Yeah.
not there. So in fact, they would overcompensate to the
Yeah.
extent that their kids would get pissed.
Yeah.
So so I think all of that, and so I actually and then I had help at home.
Yeah.
I had very good nannies for her all the time. So all of that was really helpful. Also, to say that her father really doesn't live very far. He lives down
Mm.
the road.
Yeah.
So he chose to stay in a place that was accessible. So
Right.
when she was younger, she had to be picked up and dropped. Now she can just walk or cycle. So that was also there. Though like, it's not like tomorrow, if I'm really sick, for example, I had dengue and I just couldn't. I know that she can go to her father, go to school from there, do everything from there, and it's kind
Yeah.
of taken care of.
Right.
So that understanding was also always there.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, I think that's very, thoughtful of you to have made that kind of ecosystem for yourself and for your daughter to thrive in that environment. But and also, Arundhati, talking about, many roles that we play in our lives, and you've been navigating a lot of roles, entrepreneur, mom, and also I think an advocate also for sustainability. So I'd love to know more about your sustainability journey. How did that come about? Did you all Were you always passionate about this, or something sparked your interest in this whole area? And what led you to create, starting with Studio Beach? What was it?
So I think I was always a very not very, but let's say a relatively more conscious person with what's happening. But I had a regular corporate HR job. And in a city like Bombay, when you're like just, I don't know, driving 2 hours to get to work, doing work, coming back, raising children, I have come to understand that people don't not do things because they don't want to, but I just think they have so much going on in life that it's a little hard to, bring this whole other thing called sustainability into your life. It sounds like a lot to do, really.
Yeah.
Uh, so, uh, about 5 years ago, when I turned 40, we had taken a holiday abroad. Equira, me, a bunch of our friends, and stuff like that. And I remember it was our first holiday to Europe,
Uh-huh.
and and it was very hot. That was one of those years when Europe was in the midst of a massive heat wave. Now, so it's become normal. Every
Normal.
year is a heat wave. So, and I remember having this conversation with my friends also at that time that, this whole thing that we talk about climate warming, it's here. Like in India, it's
Yeah.
very easy to think, we live in a
Yeah.
country where the weather is bad, it's hot and all, but it's really everywhere. So I came back from that holiday and I started following the whole climate space a lot more actively, so to say. And I wanted to do something in that space.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't know what, because I didn't really have any professional grounding, education, anything in that space. So so at that time, my father, he's into leather, he's an exporter. And there was a lot of conversation around me joining his business. He was At that time, I don't know, 73
Yeah.
and things like that. So that's when I started exploring alternates to leather. Like, is there a
Right.
better way to do his business kind of a
Yeah.
thing? And that's when I discovered all these materials, etc., etc. So I go to my father and say, "Hey, listen, great idea, alternate materials. Let's do this." And all. He's like, "Listen, great idea, but I am not changing my business anytime soon. It's profitable, it makes money, and during my lifetime, leather is not going
Yeah.
anywhere." So I said, "Okay, fair enough." But by that time, in my head, I'd already switched. I was like, you know
Yeah.
what, this is what I want to do. And given my clauses, agreements, etc., etc., moving out of Bombay was also not even an option for me. And
Right.
my dad stays in Kolkata, I stay in Mumbai. So I said, all right, I'll just set it up on my own. So when people ask me, what made you start Beej and what did you think? To be very honest, I didn't think too much.
Yeah.
I had this research, I had this idea, I knew I wanted to work in this space, and that was it. There was nothing really happening in the space in India at that time that you could even refer to or learn from. Like in 2019,
Yeah.
um, sustainable bags was not a conversation in India at all. So, so 2019, I registered the company, I started working on it, and then for the last 5 years, I built Gauge. But what also happened in the course of the last 5 years is as I built the brand, my understanding of the space became so much more
Yeah.
because suddenly I was, it's almost like, I don't know, some filter has been lifted from your eyes.
Yeah.
You start looking at the world differently,
Right.
right? You start looking at consumption differently. You start looking at what's happening. You start looking at people, habits, behaviors, everything. And that's what happens in the last 5 years. I have taken courses, I have studied, I've read extensively, so my entire perspective changed.
Yeah.
And then by early this year, I was like, you know what, if I really really want to do something in this space, then why am I selling bags even if they are really good bags?
Yeah.
So I said, all right, maybe this short story needs to end. And
Yeah.
that's how we decided to close the brand in July this year.
Yeah.
And I'm just in the process of setting up my own consulting in the space of climate and sustainability.
Okay. And do you want to tell us a little more about the new business that you're setting up, the consulting, or do you want to keep it under wraps for now?
Uh, well, I can share a little bit about it. I don't have everything kind of chalked out yet, but one of the things I did notice while we were building Beach is that everybody is talking about climate tech.
Yeah.
There's a massive amount of VC funding going to climate tech. We believe that technology will solve every problem there is in this space, which is possibly not untrue. Technology can solve a lot of problems, but when you start looking at the history of where we are today and why we are where we are, you cannot deny the fact that this is all human created. It
Right.
is a result of human choices, human actions, human behavior. Climate changes, it's not a new phenomena. It's been
Yeah.
talked about for the last 100 years,
Right.
last 35, 40 years, so very actively.
Yeah.
But nobody has done anything about it.
Yeah.
So this is to say that if numbers, data, information was enough to change people's behaviors, we should have changed by now.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, so my personal interest is in looking at climate and sustainability through a very social lens, the lens of human action, human behavior, to say that while technology is here to support us, what can we do uh, as humans? How do we modify behaviors? How do we tell those powerful stories? How do we impact change? To get more people into this, because the truth of the matter also is that a handful of people cannot solve this problem,
Right.
no matter how hard they work and how hard they try. We really really need many many more people
Right.
into this space. The consulting is going to look at a couple of things. It's going to look at the whole space of climate storytelling and how do we influence human behaviors. it is going to look at the space of working with sustainable brands, because as a I'm a practitioner of that space.
Yeah.
I built a brand 0 to 1. So if you want to bring sustainability into your brand story and narrative, how do you do that? So I am working with a bunch of founders who are launching businesses in this space, in different things. Somebody's launching shoes, somebody's launching apparel brand, things like that. This whole space of CSR. So for me, a particular space of interest also is that whole intersection between climate, craft, um, gender,
Mm,
because the truth of the matter is women are disproportionately affected by climate across the world.
right.
So, if there are organizations who are looking to uh, do CSR, or create more impact in this particular space, um, then working with them to figure out their strategies, how do you execute it, how do you create impact on the ground. That's one. And I think the last is around just zero waste events. I
Yeah.
mean, it just bothers me so much that people apply zero common sense when it comes to events,
Yeah.
whereas, so yeah.
Yeah. And Arundhati, you're talking about this, and I'm very intrigued to know if you could picture a world where you have the power to change one thing about how society views sustainability, or sustainable living. What would you change and why? How do you think this change would impact, the society at large or the environment at large?
I mean, why? I think we've created a society where we feel that sustainability is optional,
Yeah.
and it is a good to do thing, not a have to do thing. And also the fact that it's too difficult. Like I said, in people's busy lives, it doesn't really feature. And
Yeah.
interestingly, I was reading a book, and it said something very interesting, that as human beings we place a lot of importance on um, harm that is caused intentionally, which is
Yeah.
why we always say, hey, listen, it wasn't my intention to say this. And what is my. So the underlying belief is that if you intentionally do something, then there is a problem.
Yeah.
But if it just happens,
Yeah. It's okay.
and it wasn't your intention, it is okay. So, so we are just going about our lives, trying to send our kids to school, do our jobs. Intentionally, unintentionally, we are making actions that are not good. So it's all right, because I don't want to hurt the planet, really.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's a very pervasive feeling. So if only we could do one thing, that is, we could get people to say, hey, listen, there's no other way of living life. Now,
Yeah.
within the lives you live, within the circumstances, have to make conscious choices. And sustainability means very different things for different people.
Yeah.
It depends on, which part of the country you're living, what is your demographics, what are your psychographics, what is your earning, what's your occupation. So there is no one way of doing it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And Arundhati, now coming back to, parenting. So since becoming a parent, have you noticed any major shifts in your way of life or thinking? Is there a before and after version of your personality that has come since Equira has come into your life?
I think I've become more patient, for
Yeah.
sure. I don't think I used to be a very patient person before she was born. And I feel like you also change depending on the um, life stage of your children.
Yeah.
So when your kids are younger, it is all about caregiving,
Yeah.
or you just want to ensure they're comfortable, food is okay, because they cannot take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Um, right? Of late, like now, since my daughter is a teenager, I kind of find myself being very, very conscious of the things I say, the things I do, the choices I make,
Yeah.
because I know she's watching.
Yeah.
So and she will ask me questions saying, why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why did you speak to so and so like this? So, which
In
was,
a way,
I'm,
sorry, I'm just interacting. In a way, is she your moral compass?
I don't know why she feels I'm answerable to her for everything I do. Like, I don't know what's given her that sense of entitlement, really. But but in a way, it's good because so many times I find myself stopping myself and saying, "Ki, you know what? No." I also feel that when you become a parent, saying sorry comes a lot more easily to you.
Yeah.
Like my patience has become better, but it is not the best. So I will still sometimes, just fly off my handle, lash off, say something, and then come reflect on it in some time and say, maybe I overreacted, maybe I could have said it differently, maybe I didn't understand what she was trying to say, so and so forth. And then to come back and have that conversation with that person to say, hey, listen, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have spoken to you like this.
Yeah.
I still don't like XYZ of what you said or did, but so I think becomes that's a change. I
Yeah.
can tell you that.
Yeah. And the ways that you've spoken about, I think they are all ways in which maybe your personality and your persona has grown. And there
It
is a,
has.
yeah, but are there also parts of your personality or life that you feel that you've to let go of because now you have this another human being that you have to nurture and raise?
Not really. I don't think I'm one of those mothers who's given up on, life because I have a child to do. I still pretty much do what I want to do. If I want to go out, I will. If I want to drink, I will. If I want to, watch a show that she's not supposed to watch, I still will. So I really don't. I've never got this feeling like I've had to give up on stuff
Yeah.
to raise her. I know many mothers don't have that privilege,
Yeah.
especially when you're growing up, especially when you're raising your kids in a slightly in a family unit,
Yeah. Yeah.
because then you have to conform to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, Over here, we didn't have to do that, right? We got to kind of, I don't know, make our own rules,
Yeah.
figure out what's comfortable for the two of us, and I let go of a few things, she lets go of a few things, and then we figured our own rhythm, so to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And, talking, I really like your outlook in life about it being a collection of short stories and not really chapters. And apart from this, has there been a particular mantra or quote that you turn to in your tough times that, keep you anchored?
Different things at different times. I think I read a lot,
Yeah.
and depending on what's happening in my life, it's weird. I think most of my answers come to me through books.
Yeah.
So whether it's dealing with a relationship, whether it's dealing with business, whether it's dealing with closure, most answers come to me in books. But I have learned. I can tell you what I've learned overall, that
Yeah.
everything passes.
Yeah.
Okay, everything passes. Every time I have felt like, oh my God, this is like a life altering situation. I can tell you my divorce. I can tell you when I left my job, when I left my career, and it was not a small career. It was 18 years of a career.
Yeah.
When I started the business, when the business started, and 2 months later, 1 month later, there was COVID. Or when I closed the business, everything feels like, oh my God, how will I even get through this?
Yeah.
How will I? Everything passes, and a very I was just, maybe I should recommend a show that I was watching, and
Yeah. Please.
it's a show called Lessons in Chemistry.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
a show on Apple TV, and it's about a woman in her 70s who is actually a scientist, and how she navigates the whole male dominated world of chemistry and scientists. And she says a very good thing. She says, every time you feel, I cannot do it, I cannot get through this, and then miraculously you expand and you
Yeah.
get through it,
Yeah.
and then you move on, and there is the next thing. So I think you just have to it's a process. You have to allow yourself that space to expand, deal with it, and get through it. And now I tell myself, if I've got through all of that,
You can get
then
through.
I'll get through everything else that is to come.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I'm so happy on a side note that you talked about lessons in chemistry. That happens to be one of my most favorite books.
Yeah, love.
Love it completely in love. And yeah, so because you talked about reading, Arundhati, I'm going off charts a bit because I'm a big reader myself. So just want to know, what kind of books do you like? What do you read generally?
Um, Totally depends on what's happening in life with me.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of books on just now I read a lot of books on climate change and
Mm,
how to talk about it, how to communicate it. I read books on healing. I read books on just building perspective, business. Not so much fiction nowadays, but I used to read a lot of fiction. But just a lot on just goodness. I
mm,
don't know how to explain it, but
yeah.
I feel like we could do with more good people. Like I've also I feel like the last 3 4 years has also been strange for me in a way to say that I have come across a lot of goodness, like
Yeah.
people, strangers, clients, people I don't know. I can tell you when I was closing my brand and we made the brand announcement, people I didn't know at all, right? Just clients of these. They sent me books
Mm,
and they sent me letters. And I don't know how they knew that that was just the book I needed to see or read. Or,
yeah.
and I have honestly been very fortunate, I would say, and blessed. Like I really experienced kindness from strangers.
Yeah.
And I think I used to not notice it so much 5 years ago.
Mm,
Um, I've started noticing it a lot more now,
yeah.
and therefore I see a lot more of it in my life,
Yeah.
and and I try and give a lot more of it as well.
Yeah. 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 And talking of this, Arundhati, now we are on the subject of you and what you are noticing. What's something that is an interesting or surprising fact about you that most people wouldn't know and you'd like to share? It could be about your personality, it could be about your journey.
I'm an introvert. Um,
You are?
it doesn't come across like that, but I'm an absolute. I hate um big gatherings. I hate every time there is a networking event, I want to cry. Like I am absolutely bad at networking. But because I have a public persona,
Yeah.
thanks to the brand, it appears like I'm a very outgoing person. I think that's something about me. I think the other thing about me, and which I have also discovered recently, and therefore I'm sharing it here, is that I think my ability to build something and then leave it and go and build something else is
Yeah.
truly higher than most people. And
Yeah.
that's why when I say I live my life in chapters, it is possibly true.
Yeah.
I built a career, I gave it, I left it, I went on to build something else. I never thought about it. I
Yeah.
built a brand for 5 years. When I was shutting it, I feel like so many, it bothered many more people than it really bothered me. And I
Yeah.
was like, it's okay. So I think it's a great quality to have, to
Yeah.
be able to build something, walk away and build something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know I had it in me.
And the world gets to experience much more of your talent, and we get to benefit from it. I think we should be happy as outsiders because Arundhati is now moving on to something else, because we have taken, I mean, even though I could not buy a bag when Studio Beach was there, but we have partook the goodness, and now we'll get to see something else. So I think we should be all the more happier for it, when you choose to walk away from one thing and to the next.
I can tell you it's not easy. Like
Yeah.
it's very hard, and I don't know if it's naive. I don't know if it's stupid. I don't know. Uh, I don't even know if it's the right or wrong thing to do, because I can tell you my father was extremely upset when I closed. He didn't, extremely upset. Like he didn't talk to me. And for someone who's been a businessman for almost 50 years now,
Yeah.
for him it is like it's not even an option. तुम बंद
Yeah.
कैसे कर सकते हो types, you know? So they don't get it. He doesn't get it. But so most people don't get it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think I'm wired that way. I also think I get bored very quickly, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
For me, it's always about what's the next
Yeah.
thing that I want to do.
Going back to parenting a little bit, Arundhati, if you were to think about, like, I think your life is the as anyone's life is a bit about learning and then moving on, then constantly evolving. Is there something that you have learned from your daughter in these last 14 years that truly stands out to you as absolutely life changing or life altering?
I think Nikita taught me to be a kind person. I said that
Yeah.
earlier at the start of the thing. Like, from her, I really learned what it was to love animals. Like I used to like animals, but
Yeah.
she's taught me how to love them.
Yeah.
She would, like, I used to be scared of street dogs till we got Leah, and even now, like, I'm a little scared of street dogs. But she's an animal whisperer. She can go on the road and suddenly all the dogs will come, and I'll have to tell her, Ekveera, stop it, stop it, stop it. And she'll be like, oh, what are you doing? Your clothes will get dirty. This will happen, that will happen. And then she'll be like, are you discriminating? Like, so from her, I have really learned what it is to just love unconditionally,
Yeah.
without worrying about and so yeah, not like I'm very good at it. I'm still but I look at her do it every day, and I'm like, oh my God, how does this girl do it?
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. And thinking about, maybe some of your challenging moments as a parent, could you tell us about maybe one of those moments where you felt extremely overwhelmed and you just didn't think that you could find your way through it, but you did, and here you are.
To be honest, I don't think I've had one of those moments, but I can tell you that as your children grow older, sometimes to change with them is hard,
Yeah.
because you get used to, for example, when your child is small, the the parent child relationship is very different. You are used to instructing, and
Yeah.
the child is used to listening,
Yeah.
and you are always instructing with the child's best interest in mind, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, by the time they reach 10, 11, there is some switch that goes up in their brain. I don't know what it is. And suddenly that person is an entity, is a human being who has their own likes, dislikes. Um, and I can tell you, every parent struggles with that.
Yeah.
I struggled with it, when suddenly she would not listen, or she would want to, you know, um, instead of spending, like if she and I had a plan to go somewhere and suddenly some friend's plan would come up, she will prioritize those friends and decide to go. And like, no, I have to go so and so. And I've had those moments with her, right? And I have cried and I've told her the exact thing which every parent says, and you should not say, like, you don't care about me. I have done so much for you, all of that. Like, tried to guilt trip her into. I think some of those transitions are hard,
Yeah.
and so those have been moments when I have like really, like, I don't know, maybe cried for a couple of days, sulked for a couple of days, kind of a thing. And then you learn that you know. They, one of the things I have, and I think you can only learn it by living through it. If someone tells it to you, it doesn't really register.
Yeah.
Is that your children are not responsible for your mental health, or your well-being. And the reason why I say this is, and I'm digressing a bit here, when parents get divorced, especially divorced parents, there is a lot of pressure on the child to keep the parent happy.
Yeah.
You know, there is suddenly, I mean, and I have seen that with Equira. There was a lot of pressure on her to ensure that, my mother is all right, she's sorted. If suddenly a text message would come from her father, which would be disturbing, she would be looking at my face to say, is she going to cry? Is she going to get, and I realized that, it's too much pressure on her.
Yeah.
Why are we putting this pressure on her to keep her, to keep the balance? She's a child. Like
Yeah.
we have disbalanced her life, so to say. So,
Yeah.
and I don't think you understand that till it really happens.
Yeah.
And so, over a period of time, I learned that, what, she's not responsible for my happiness. And if I make her the pivotal point of my life, saying everything is about her, if I have to,
Yeah.
if I have to go out with her, I have to watch movies with her, I have to shop with her, I have to do this with her, I have to do that with her, because I don't know how to do it alone.
Yeah.
It is too much pressure on her.
Yeah.
So, but we learned. Now
Yeah.
we have a life together, and we also have our own lives.
Yeah. That sounds, yeah, as you say, no, it all makes sense in retrospect. So it's so nice to have you talk about what has gone wrong in that sense. But in that time, maybe that made sense, and you both didn't know better.
And you need it. I mean, as a human being, I am so emotionally vulnerable at that point that I need that support. And if it is my child, then so be it.
Yeah.
I mean, at an intellectual level, you are able to
Yeah.
see it, but at an emotional level, you still do it
Yeah.
because you need it.
Yeah.
And you realize much later that, like, I have actually had this conversation with my friends to say, hey, listen, I think I'm putting too much pressure on Equira
Yeah.
to always say and do the right thing, to be around, to keep me happy. That's not her job,
Yeah. Yeah.
really.
Yeah. But you said, you've talked to your friends about it. Have you ever talked to her about it, Equira about it? Like how there has been, I mean, to say that maybe, as you said, you talked about how holidays, because she might not be discriminated. I mean, so that she is not discriminated, there is an overcompensation. So is there a conversation about it, about any of it, the difference or the otherness that is there in your life versus a normal family unit, a normal,
Actually,
yeah,
I feel like divorce has become a pretty normal thing, to be honest now.
yeah,
Like, it's not like she's the only child in her class or things like that, right? Uh, so, in fact, on the other hand, she would, keep saying, like, sometimes she would say this thing, and I know she's totally manipulating me when she would say something like, I have to manage you and dad. You have no idea how difficult it is. Then I have to tell her that, listen,
yeah,
hey, calm down. Don't make yourself sound like some victim.
yeah,
Life is not so hard.
yeah,
We are two separate individuals, but we keep you at the center of everything we do. So
yeah,
you honestly have a pretty good life.
yeah,
So it's the other conversation. I told her, I said, Ikira, you know what? Divorce is not the end of life.
yeah,
And would you rather have two parents who are uh, individuals and happy,
yeah,
watching out for you, or they are together and constantly unhappy? Because
right,
unhappy parents cannot be functional parents
right,
because they are just always struggling with themselves.
yeah,
So my conversation with her is the other way around. That don't play this. I'm the child of a broken family story with me. It's not working.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's very interesting that, it's actually not a broken family. It might be a broken relationship.
It's
And
a different family unit.
it's a
It's a
different
different kind of,
family. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And as you said,
yeah.
it's become much more, commonplace and normal these days to have different sets of family, different types of diverse family units. And I think divorce is still a normal phenomena, or same-sex relationships, and having two mothers instead of a father and mother, and two fathers instead of a father and mother. I think we are now moving on to those setups
Yeah,
as
yeah.
as being different, so to say. Yeah. And Arundhati, now we are coming to the close of this conversation, but I have two questions more for you. And in one, I want you to go into a little bit of a mind adventure. Imagine you're handed a magic journal that can capture one perfect moment from your life with your daughter in vivid details, so perfectly that you can revisit it anytime, feel it, relive it as if it's happening all over again. What would that moment be? Is there any moment that you want to capture in this journal?
I can tell you, one of the first things we did after her father moved out of the house was that I think soon after that, maybe a few days after that, we took a holiday to Singapore. And Mira was still small. I think she was maybe six and a half that time. Um, and it was the perfect holiday. See, holidays also change with kids, right? When they're six and a half, um, you are like the center of their lives, and you can get to have the holiday you want with them. When they are 14, that's not an option really.
Yeah.
So I think we had the absolute perfect 1 week of just spending time with each other. And girls are, I mean, girls are special that way, right? You can I don't know, dress them up,
Yeah.
and uh, so this whole thing about them, um, what frock, what bow, what hair, blah blah. So it was an absolutely perfect holiday, and I say this all the time. I think parents, this whole need to have children, right? People who have two children, three children, four children. I think that comes from honestly the first 7, 8 years of your children's life, because there is one human being who loves you so unconditionally,
Yeah.
so unconditionally. I don't think you can experience that love unless you're a parent.
Yeah.
मतलब कुछ भी कर लो, you hit the child, you slap the child, you beat. They just want you. They want to be loved by you. They want to be seen by you. They want to be. Um, you are their everything, like
Yeah.
literally, and that's a huge, massive responsibility. Like you're literally shaping the mind of another human being.
Yeah.
Um, so um, so I think those moments are gone between her and me. I don't think unconditional love in that form exists anymore. But but yeah, that trip was perfect. We have a lot of pictures from that trip. I mean, we keep chatting about it, and then we are like, let's go again. I told her we will go again, but I can promise you, it's not going to be the same thing.
Same thing. Beautiful, beautiful. I think you took me there with your words, even though I don't know what it was, but I can imagine it in blurry details. And finally, Arundhati, if you could leave our listeners with, say, one piece of advice or insight or wisdom that captures who you are and what you believe in as a parent, what would that be?
I think I would say that there is no rule book to parenting,
Yeah,
right? We were brought up by our parents in a way, and I'll also say that there are no perfect parents. Okay,
yeah,
everybody's. I mean, our parents brought us up in a certain way. They did a few things we liked. They did a few things we didn't like. And that was a result of their upbringing, their experiences, their perspectives, the way their parents brought them up. So some of it flowed down to the way they brought up their kids. As parents, I believe that fundamentally we wish right for our kids. The intent is to do well. So if the intent is to do well, even if sometimes the actions are not so good, I think it's all right. You know, you will have bad days. You will have um, bad decisions you may take for your kids. You may have decisions you take for yourself that overspill onto your children's lives, and all of that. And it's it's all right. Um, I also feel like we really underestimate our kids' ability to understand completely. I don't know why we have this insane parent thing that we need to protect our children from everything. Because I have found that our kids are so understanding and so mature when you bring them, when you talk to them about what's really happening. So I would say at some point when your kids are of the right age, make them your friends.
Yeah.
Talk to them because they will give you perspectives and views uh, you don't see coming. Like I can tell you a lot of support um, to do my business came from my daughter. A lot
Wow.
of support. And when I say support, I mean that I used to be gone 9 to 9. Okay. I used to hardly see her. I used to work Monday to Saturday. But if at any point she would have complained or it would have shown in her studies or her life or her, I would have been forced to rethink as a single mother that, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But she always stepped up to it and she said, yeah, okay, I know you're busy. I know you're this. I told her for 5 years, I said, we can't take any expensive holidays because we're building. So I think children get it.
Yeah.
Your children can, if you allow them to get it,
Yeah.
I think one is that I would say that to every parent. And secondly, I would say just lead with your heart. When it comes to your kids, really, really just lead with your heart. You know what is to be done. Parenting is also, you're constantly learning. You're
Yeah.
constantly learning how to be a parent. I can promise you when children are born, you don't know what it is to be a parent.
Yeah.
So learn, there's no harm. Learn along with the child. And, Maya Angelou says something like she has this line which I find amazing, which says, do what you know. And when you know better, do better. So
Mm.
literally that,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. I think fantastic, amazing. Arundhati, thank you so much for being here today and opening up about your life with such honesty and grace. I think your journey from navigating the ups and downs of single parenthood to championing sustainability is just nothing short of inspiring. And I think the way you've seamlessly woven your values into your professional and personal lives is a powerful reminder of the impact one individual can make. Even though you say that, ek se kya hoga types, but I think one can also do a lot of things, and change starts with one, not just in our own household, but in the world at large. And you've shown us that parenting is not just about raising our children, but also about continuously evolving ourselves. I'm sure our listeners are walking away with so much valuable insights, whether it's about finding balance, building resilience, or simply embracing the messiness of life with gratitude and grace. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Those are very kind words. It didn't seem
But
like I deserve them all, but thank you.
no, I mean, yeah, you deserve them all and more. And thank you for being here. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Parenthood. If Arundhati's story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What are the values you're living by? What are the small steps you're taking to align your life with your beliefs? Parenting isn't about perfection, it is about persistence, passion, and the pursuit of joy, even in the little moments. If you found something in today's conversation that moved you, please share this episode with a friend or fellow parent who could use some encouragement. And remember to subscribe to Parenthood to stay connected to our growing community. Your reviews and feedback are incredibly valuable. They help us shape the show and keep the conversations flowing. And lastly, let's keep this community vibrant and supportive. Until next time, keep embracing the chaos, cherish the small victories, and always remember you're doing an incredible job. Until next time, this is Neha Garg signing off. Take care and stay well.